Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the legal and government correspondent, and it is spring election season, and our guest is a candidate for City Council, Joy Knudson. Joy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jamie. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, you're a return guest because you first ran for City Council when?
I ran 2 years ago, April 2022.
Okay.
I was on the ballot. I was elected. I was happy to be successful in that campaign. It's District 3 in the city of Hudson.
Thank you.
You're Am I jumping ahead of the questions?
No, you're right. You're great. District 3. And just like tell our viewers, what area of the city does that cover?
Okay, sure. Great. The District 3 covers the elementary school would be EP Rock. That's kind of in the center of my district. And we go along Cooley Road up towards Carmichael. So the businesses that would include like Target and the Goodwill stores relocated, etc. Michael's, those are businesses in my district. And then up Carmichael Road, which is also a very obviously growing and busy commercial district. My district includes Bella Rose, that new development that has opened recently.
Okay, with the old golf course.
Yes, well, it was an empty field for many years,
Yes, right.
But yes, there's some single-family homes and an apartment building which people have been moving into in the last year. So I look forward to getting to know those folks as I go door to door. And then also parts of Stone Pine and again the neighborhood around EP Rock. No, it's all north of the interstate.
North of the interstate and south of Vine?
Yes,
Okay.
it is south of Vine.
Yeah, very good. So, and you don't have an opponent
That's correct.
this year, and you know we have to mention your husband because he was involved in city government before you. Dean and I have known each other for a long time. He's probably my most frequent guest on this show over the years, covering his mayoral work, state representative, and then of course his work on the election commission as well. But but you are again your own person, and you had your own reasons for running. Why are you seeking re-election?
Yes, thank you, Jamie. It's certainly true. I have learned a lot by watching and being a part of Hudson for quite a few years. I've actually lived in our home for over 30 years.
Okay.
Which, yes, that is a problem.
Same house.
Yes, same house. There's closets that haven't been cleaned in a while, let's just say. There's a benefit to moving. But we love the neighborhood. We love Hudson. Our children went to school here. We had a business here for many years. I am a veterinarian by my background and my training, and so my husband and I initially started Hillcrest Animal Hospital many years ago, and so we've worked in Hudson, active in the chamber, local churches, etc. And then I've also worked in other communities as well as a veterinarian, but I was retired shortly after COVID and worked for several years during COVID, which the veterinary world is very busy. Everyone adopting pets during that time period. But then I did cut back on my work schedule, so I had some time more to focus back on, how could I contribute in Hudson. I just saw some areas where I thought, as a business owner, longtime resident, that I could maybe contribute. And so that is why I stepped in initially. I've really learned a lot in the first 2 years, a couple of areas that I really needed to get up to speed on. I was appointed to the Public Works Committee. That helped me learn pretty quickly some of the issues about maintaining our infrastructure. Also very concerned about zoning going forward. That's one of the reasons I'd like to continue is got a knowledge base where I can go forward. I always want to have input from residents, but I certainly work for the people in my district.
Right.
I want to represent them.
Absolutely. And just do what's best for the city of Hudson overall. Right?
Trying to. That's the goal.
Well, if I can, like when it comes to zoning, what are you thinking in terms of changes in zoning districts, or is it like looking at potentials for annexation? Because that actually has to be requested by somebody from outside the city. And
yes, that's interesting. Good points there on that, Jamie. And some states are different. Yeah. But you're right. In the state of Wisconsin, Hudson can't just decide, well, we want this chunk of land, let's bring it into the city. It's not, you're correct, it's not done that way. The property owner needs to approach the city. There have been some projects in the last couple of years where there was a potential purchase of a piece of property that, they wanted to be annexed and approached the city and was looking at zoning issues for that. So sometimes we have already had to apply that. And I look at zoning as a way to make sure we can provide the continuity, the quality of life that we want in our community. And, zoning, land map use, different districts and so on that have been established need to be carefully evaluated. Making any sudden changes can definitely affect adjacent property owner. So I think making very careful decisions, especially I think of our historic downtown, because even people who don't live in Hudson, live in the surrounding areas, come for occasional visits. That's what draws them to Hudson is our scenic riverfront, the beautiful lakefront park, the historic downtown. And I just want to make sure we make really careful decisions for that moving forward. Because it is true, well, you mentioned annexation, it is true that the city of Hudson doesn't have a lot of undeveloped property within our current boundaries. So there are some options and there are places, but we're certainly looking at a lot of infill development, which means we take a piece of property that's been used for something prior, maybe it's fallen into disuse or someone else buys it and sees a different opportunity there. That definitely brings new challenges, I think, because now are we going to change what's happening in that environment where it had been fairly stable, so those are, tread carefully. Move carefully. And we have great, long-standing and hardworking members of our planning commission that do a lot of that work, but it does eventually fall on the city council to make any zoning changes. And it is important to me that we make careful decisions so that we can continue the quality of life, the sort of small town feel that we have in many parts of our town.
Okay. So with that, looking back over the last couple of years, your first two on the city council, what are maybe some actions that were taken that you would be, proud of, that you were involved in, or glad that they were steps that the city took?
Okay, thank you. Well, I would say things that we've worked on recently. I've been a part of two budgets. The first one was quite lean, very little increase, trying to really hold the line in expenses and increases, as you know, and as you experience in the school board, very experienced in budgeting and the limitations that are put by the state of Wisconsin on how much we can increase taxes.
Revenue limits.
Right, those limits are there. They can feel like they're a hindrance, but they're really there to protect the property owners, the taxpayers of our area, so that sudden changes don't happen, decisions aren't made. So I think I've been happy with the budgeting process. I was wishing that there were a few things that had gone different in the last budget, but I was on the Finance Council, had a chance to provide input. I think one of the things that's a big impact for us that's happened in the last 2 years cycle is the change in the library structure, where it had kind of happened to the city of Hudson, if you will, because for a number of years we've had the joint library where 4 different municipalities participated. And one by one, the 3 other partners, I'll call them partners, stepped back and said, we want to do this differently. We're withdrawing from the joint library. So we did have a year notice on that. That automatically put us into a situation, we don't have enough time to talk about it tonight, but that there would be an increase coming from the city of Hudson in the contribution. And I probably would have steered a few things a little bit differently there.
To try and prevent that from happening?
Well, I don't know if I would have been able to prevent it because, each municipality they did pretty well to share that partnership for, I think, almost 20 years to coordinate spending and budgeting and so on. I think I would have maybe had the city of Hudson handle the transition a little bit differently. I think the interesting thing, and part of this comes from the state of Wisconsin, really establishing boundaries to protect libraries. It's highly valued in our state, has been for many years. So there's legislation protecting them and providing for them, requiring them. And so we have to follow their guidelines. And then the county also controls some of the things, expenditures that affect the city, because we do have to
because you have
spend a matching amount.
Bordering library districts and how those tax dollars are allocated.
All those issues of where the tax dollars go. And that's why the joint library was started, really, was to keep all the tax dollars here at home for all the local users. So that part has all changed, and I don't think I could have ever maybe change the other municipalities, but we're going to work forward. There's more, and I look forward to working with the library because they do have an independent board of trustees that actually determines how to spend the money that they're allocated.
Right.
So I look forward to that, and I know it's a very successful library. We want to support that, but yes, there's many things to spend on. When I first was appointed to the Public Works Committee, I was actually appointed to be the chair. So I've experienced quite a bit just in a few years of seeing the cost of, say, lack of $100,000. We weren't able to repair or improve walking trails down Lakefront Park. A very small section might cost $100,000. So it starts to sink in to how much this really costs.
Well, that was going to be my next question. With your
yeah.
experience on Public Works, and I know that it was a pretty hefty price tag projected for future, over the next 10 years or so for future Public Works. So how do you feel about that plan, and are you confident we can execute?
Well, that is something that I have learned quite a bit about since that time. I think that was, you could say, a kind of a rolling number or an estimate of what it might cost. One of the interesting things about Hudson is if you want to plan for the future, and we're up against this, let's pick a street in Hudson, 9th Street. Going from Vine Street down towards St. Croix.
Yep.
It's down a hill, you know, there's some speeding issues there. It's very close to the high school, so young drivers coming to and from school. So we've talked about improving that, maybe doing some things to enhance it. Certainly it needs to be resurfaced. But that part of town, that particular section of our water, our pipes, you know, those deep utilities that city is responsible for through our own departments, public utility, need to be replaced. So if we were just to resurface 9th Street, make it nice and smooth, maybe more crosswalks or something to enhance safety, that would be a little wasteful of the tax dollars, because what we really should do within the next 5 to 10 years probably is replace those underground pipes.
Right.
Now I understand that we're lucky in Hudson. We have 80, 90-year-old pipes underground, both fresh water and sanitary sewer line. But something about the structure of our soil, the sandy structure that we have here in Hudson, they last a long time, because in some communities they'll only last 40 or 50 years.
Right.
So we've been doing well, and they're in excellent shape, well maintained, but you have to decide, boy, can we afford, so that what would have been a resurfacing project. So I think when you look at how big that dollar amount was estimated a few years ago, it included replacing everything.
Okay.
Which we're not going to need to do that all right away, but it does factor in when we decide, should we resurface the street? Boy, it's looking pretty rough. Well, actually, we better plan for the full reconstruction, and that costs quite a bit more. Takes more coordination, et cetera. So.
And that might be an area, that specific street, that's not in your district.
No, it's not. No, it's
but
not.
that doesn't mean that you just advocate for only projects in your district.
It's true. That is true. I do feel like I'm happy to hear from people who live throughout town. I have a specific district that I'm assigned to, but absolutely we serve. I think that's part of the duty, is to serve everyone in town and to be equally concerned for, yes, streets in other districts. For example, one in my district is 11th Street, is quite busy between Wisconsin down to Cooley. A lot of traffic there, and that is slated for some work. We did receive a grant from, it's a federal grant administered
That
by,
include the 11th Street Bridge?
No, it doesn't. So that is a little disappointing. One thing about that, because there was quite a bit of discussion about that a few years ago. I don't want to call it wishful thinking, but in a way the city was trying to come up with a design and a plan, because that was required to even apply for a grant.
Right.
So before you can apply for a grant, you have to say, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And so we just, there was discussion about various aspects. How do we make it safer, pedestrian crossing, et cetera? Well, we haven't received any grant money.
Yeah.
So that is still on the list that we would like. One challenge on that one, particularly, Jamie, is it's actually not our bridge.
Okay.
It actually is under the auspices of the state of Wisconsin. So I do have some hesitation about the city taking that on.
Right.
While we want to improve it, we want it to be safer. Are we going to take on the responsibility? I mean, if we pay our money and then Wisconsin DOT isn't happy with they're going to supervise it and double check what we're doing, but still it's a gray area of whether
So
we should.
I think you make an excellent point, is that it illustrates it's complicated. And when you have layers of government and you have multiple districts within the city, and some roads are much newer than others, and so you got to prioritize.
Yes.
And you got to do what makes most fiscal sense in the current. We don't have enough tax dollars to do everything in the next 2 years. So it's going to have.
It is true.
Yeah.
It is true, and I think there are several major streets that have just been reconstructed recently, and our public works staff and engineering staff have a plan to maintain those, because we do have to spend some money. Sometimes people, well, why are you working on that street again? Because it was just redone. Well, we have to reseal it or something to help preserve it, because we want to spend the money wisely. That's the biggest challenge.
And
is
there's
how do
some
we spend it
streets
wisely?
get used more than others.
Yes,
so that's
absolutely.
why people have seen things on 2nd Street, and they've seen
Yes.
major work on Vine Street in the last 10 years. Both of those have been done. But doesn't mean that you do it once and forget about it for
Yes.
30 years. So
Here's a project for you that I'm happy that's coming to pass. You might be interested with your contacts in the school. A teacher who I believe is from CISA, the regional provider for special needs students, came to Public Works Department, to our committee, and spoke to us about how many visually impaired students were in Hudson.
Okay.
So this is an adult, it's 18 and under, and I shouldn't quote it, but it was over a dozen, maybe
Okay.
20, that lived here, and that she came and worked with them. So she's teaching them how to navigate through town on their own.
Right.
And she came to us to say that, boy, I really wish that we had the auditory signaling at the cross streets, our two.
which we have at some, but not all.
Right, so our two downtown ones. So we have designated some money. Our city engineer has worked on this and found just an electrical firm that's going to install some new ones, hopefully this summer or earlier this fall. We have designated the
Great.
money in response. We hear a problem, this is a need. We're actually using some of our federal dollars from COVID relief, the ARPA
Yes.
funding. That's
Yeah.
available, and so that was a response to, we didn't realize this was an issue, that there were that many students or young people living in the area, and they need to learn how to navigate and cross those streets. So I'm
Excellent.
happy about that.
That is good.
Small thing, but it's helpful.
Oh, definitely. And with those ARPA dollars, it's use it or lose it. And
It is true.
Yep. And so it allows you to maybe give some attention to areas that you wouldn't otherwise have dollars
Exactly. I think the city has wisely taken that approach, is to purchase something, maybe not start a new program that's going to cost a lot of money to maintain, but to purchase or do something that fills a need.
Yes.
That's helpful to the city.
for. All right. Well, this is where we don't have a whole lot more time, but any other important issues that you want to see the city focus on? You mentioned the zoning and so forth, making wise decisions there. But as far as the services that the city is providing, do you think we're in a better place maybe we were than, say, even 10 years ago?
I think we're certainly doing well. I think a lot of tribute and thanks to our city staff. We have really excellent staff. As I'm sure you're hearing, the news is that the city is planning to purchase, rather than we had initially thought about building a new public works building for all their equipment and supplies and the things that team of city employees utilize. But instead, there's been an opportunity to purchase a building. That has not finalized yet, but we're moving towards that, so
Okay.
it's not secret at all anymore. And also, that is in place for purchasing a building to utilize for the police department.
Okay.
Because they are definitely growing out of their space.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the things. Our chief is a great leader. Our public works director is a great leader, but they need a work environment for their staff. We want to hire and retain people, because that's really what makes the city work, is to have those, public safety, police and fire. We've got
Right.
an excellent fire station, great for training and so on now, so that has gotten that boost. And now, a couple other major departments will also, hopefully, those projects will go forward in the next year or so to have those facilities. We're trying to do it as economically as possible, because, again, back to the tax dollars. It
Right.
was money that needed to be spent at some point. When is the right time to spend it is the challenge.
Exactly.
So,
Well, great. And I appreciate your work in the city. I'm not a city resident, but it just always benefits everyone when we have good government and making Hudson a great place to live. Because whether you're within the city limits or just outside, again, we all want safe streets, good schools, and again, quality infrastructure. And it takes planning to do that.
It does. It takes planning and a lot of work. And yes, I guess I would say that's one thing I've learned is be patient. A lot of things do take a while to move forward. So, I'm enjoying it, and I'm really happy to have the opportunity to serve Hudson residents and our friends from other communities as well.
Excellent. Well, Joy Knudson, running for City Council here in Hudson, and that was District 3.
That's correct.
All right. Thanks for being on the show, Joy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jamie. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I want to thank our voters, our viewers, and remind them to vote on April 2nd. Whether there's a contested race or not, everyone should be informed. So is there a place where they could contact you if they had questions?
Yes, well, my contact information is on the city website. There's a phone and an email there.
Okay.
So that would be a great way to reach out to me is through the city website under District 3.
All right, and they post that information so you can...
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate hearing from people.
Again, thank you for your willingness to serve and be responsive to our city residents. And I want to thank all our viewers for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson. Keep watching.